All right, how about a kickoff of Thursday afternoon with some HQ Spotlight? That's Jacqueline D'Agostino. I'm Tommy Tran as we talk football, JD, inside a month of the start of the NFL. A little over 2.5 weeks for week 0 in the college game.
And we are so excited, Tommy. We are counting down the days. And when it comes to the SEC, Texas, a lot of high hopes, high expectations. And then their season opener is probably one of the most highly anticipated matchups as they are taking on the defending champion Ohio State Buckeyes. You got to think there's going to be a lot of scouts there looking at multiple players, especially a certain quarterback for the Texas Longhorns.
With a really good legacy last night.
Yeah. You might know him. Arch Manning, right? But his grandpa is saying, hold up, scouts. Don't get too excited because Archie Manning telling Texas Monthly, a local newspaper, hey, teams that are out there, if you're going to be tanking for Arch, no one really likes to admit that, right? But he's saying he's going to return and be at Texas come 2026. So not super surprising if we know how the Manning family operates, but here it is. Archie Manning saying, quote, Arch isn't going to do that. He'll be at Texas. So saying that he's not going to declare, Arch that is, for the NFL draft after the 2025 season. So I'm sure this kind of threw some bumps in the road and a lot of mock drafts that Ryan Wilson has been putting out, week after week since the last draft wrapped up. So let's welcome in Ryan Wilson and our NFL analyst Tyler Sullivan, because guys, this kind of got us thinking, maybe some teams that should tank for quarterbacks, and we know they're professionals, they're not all going to admit it, all of that, yada, yada, yada. But let's have fun with it, right? And ironically, we are starting with the Saints, where Archie is in the Ring of Honor, right? So, Tyler, we know it's Spencer Rattler. The QB room is not great if Spencer Rattler is emerging as your QB1 right now. But why else should this team tank when you're looking at the QB room and everything going on there in New Orleans?
Well, it feels like the New Orleans Saints have been totally out of the conversation in the NFL for the last few years. Even when they got Derek Carr, it didn't feel like that was a real needle mover in terms of them getting back to the days when it was Drew Brees and Sean Payton. It kind of feels like they need something. Right now, Tyler Shuck, the second-round pick, doesn't feel like he's going to be kind of the needle mover for this organization. So I would look at them and say, listen, we're in a division where it's probably one of the worst in the NFL. We're not anywhere close to competing in that division. The only way we get there is if we strike gold at the quarterback spot, kind of do what the Washington Commanders were able to do a couple of years ago by getting Jaden Daniels, and all of a sudden that really just shoots you into the stratosphere in terms of where you could go over the next few years. And the New Orleans Saints, they do have some things that I like. I do like Kellen Moore as an offensive-minded head coach. I do think that he has the experience of working with the Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, and Jalen Hurts to kind of develop a young guy with the right talent. And if you look at their offensive line, they're setting themselves up to support a young quarterback, drafting tackles in each of the last 2 years, most recently Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. So the makings are there to support a young quarterback, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara in the backfield. It's just you need to get there now, because right now I look at this quarterback room and say, what is it doing for you today? What is it doing for you tomorrow? Not a lot.
So just to reiterate, Jacqueline, teams aren't going to tank. I know you said it, but I just want to be clear so people don't get angry at us. The professionals are going to play hard. But the reality is, as Sully noted, on paper, the Saints don't look great in the search for the quarterback room, and you might say, yeah, but they used the 40th overall pick on Tyler Shuck, the soon-to-be 26-year-old quarterback out of Louisville, who they thought was going to be their starter. And Jacqueline, as you noticed, Spencer Rattler has outplayed them so far. But here's what I would say. If you go back to 2010, Jimmy Clausen was a second-round pick of the Panthers. In 2011, guess who the Panthers took #1 overall? His name rhymes with Cam Newton. So that does not mean or preclude the Saints from drafting another quarterback, especially if on some planet in the universe that we live in or another universe, Arch Manning comes out. Otherwise, it's going to be a Garrett Nussmeier situation. It's going to be a Drew Aller situation. But I think they're going to have to be in the market for a quarterback. And as Sully noted, they don't play in a great division. They still may not win a lot of football games, and they still may be in position to draft a quarterback top 5. And I think they will almost certainly do that if they do, in fact, have a top 5 pick.
And we saw it there, the schedule, one of the easiest strengths of schedules that we're seeing out there in the NFL. So that is boding well for Spencer Rattler. But again, it's still the NFL, right? So what is that saying? It's like if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. And so that brings us to the Indianapolis Colts, right? Because Shane Steichen announcing the plan, at least for the preseason, right? So Anthony Richardson expected to play the first quarter plus in the first preseason opener there, and then Daniel Jones is going to do the exact same thing in the next one. So Ryan, if we have the Colts on this list as part of this conversation, does that mean we are losing faith in our guy, Anthony Richardson, as a starter in the NFL?
I think we've reached that point in the conversation, Jacqueline, because as a Florida alum, which you are, you have been up close and personal with AR5 going back to his time in college. And when he was backing up Emory Jones, he would come in and make 1 or 2 plays a game that would blow your mind. And then he suffered a hamstring injury. And then once he got to the NFL, he suffered a shoulder injury. And then there's all the inconsistencies because he hasn't played a ton of football. And I feel like whether it's fair or not to say that the Colts are running out of patience, I think they're running out of patience. They need to see him be in his playbook, which he admitted he wasn't great at last year, and as a rookie, he's gotten better at that. And then more importantly, be more consistent, because Daniel Jones is not a long-term solution in New York or Minnesota, where he was last year, or in Indianapolis. So again, if this team struggles in a division that's not great, they've gotten better in recent years because the other teams in that division have gotten quarterbacks. They're going to be in the market for a quarterback as well. So this is the time for AR5 to shine, and it's going to start against a Ravens team that plays preseason games like regular season games because they rarely lose them.
Come on, AR. I have faith in you. I'm the president of the Anthony Richardson Believer Club. You can do it, my friend. Let's go to the AFC North, and it's very interesting that we're talking about the Browns being on this list. So, Tyler, why are we talking about this team who, it's crazy to say, needs a quarterback when they have probably the most crowded QB room in the NFL? And there is still a group of people out there that are thinking Shedeur, if given the opportunity, could be the future of this franchise.
Yeah, well, you said it earlier, talking about the Colts. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. Well, the Browns have like 12 for whatever reason. They have so many quarterbacks, but it doesn't feel like there's one that can lead them to the future. It could be Shedeur Sanders. Sure, that's probably the one with the most highly touted name and all of that. But you got to remember, he was a 5th-round pick. The Cleveland Browns didn't really want him. No team really wanted him as badly as maybe the public viewed him in terms of a prospect. So, yeah, sure, he can use the next preseason game. He can use this summer to sort of build his stock. Maybe he gets a little bit of time during the regular season at some point to further build his stock and state his case to be the guy of the future. But if we're just going off of the snapshot of what we saw this offseason, where him falling to the 5th round, they took another quarterback ahead of him in Dylan Gabriel, who's on this roster dealing with a hamstring injury. You have a 40-year-old Joe Flacco, a Kenny Pickett who's been basically a backup over the last few years. It just feels like this team has really nowhere to go at the quarterback spot. And we haven't even mentioned that Deshaun Watson is still on this team, making a ton of money, but he's dealing with the Achilles injuries. So if you are a Browns organization, you would desperately want a guy like Arch Manning to fall to you. It doesn't feel like that's going to happen, but overall, this team desperately needs that infusion of young talent at the quarterback spot at a high caliber within the 1st round.
All right, we're going to keep it in the AFC North and talk about another interesting quarterback situation, albeit very different than the Browns. And we're going to your Steelers, Ryan, because we just had a crew, as you know, BMAC, Evan Washburn, out at Steelers camp at Latrobe there, and they sat down with Mike Tomlin. He said the standard is the standard. It's world champs. That's it. He's never had a losing season with the Steelers. So why are we talking about them potentially, I don't know, tanking, if you will, or being in that situation where they could draft a quarterback when they have Aaron Rodgers as QB1 and Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season?
All right, Jacqueline, I'm going to call you out. Tell me why this won't work, because you don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to step aside as a 41. He's not coming back. They got 1 year. So give me 10 seconds on why you think it's not going to work.
I don't know that Aaron Rodgers is not going to come back. Like, we keep saying that every single year, and the age for quarterbacks just gets higher and higher and higher for, like, the oldest active player. I mean, BMAC was sitting with him and was like, you're the last guy standing in the 2005 draft class. I just don't know. I think he likes being in the limelight. He wants to be the center of attention. I could see it going for 2 years. So that's why I'm kind of scratching my head. I don't know. That was longer than 10 seconds. I apologize.
No, I get it, and I appreciate that. And the funny thing, while you were talking, fun fact, BMAC was in the same draft class as Aaron Rodgers, 2005. That's how long ago it's been. But if Aaron comes back, that means the Pittsburgh Steelers have probably won 10 or more games. And as you noted, Jacqueline, Mike Tomlin always wins at least half his games or more. But they have to get a quarterback. We have to be done talking about this, because in the post-Big Ben world, it's been names like Mason Rudolph. Shout out to Doug Hodges. Kenny Pickett didn't work out. Mitch Trubisky, we forgot about him. Russ Wilson and Justin Fields last year. You have to find someone who can carry the load for more than a season or a season and a half. And this quarterback class, as we sit here, is going to be loaded. Now, the only thing I would say is a caveat, maybe they bring Aaron Rodgers back one more year, then really tank, and I mean tank for Arch Manning. But other than that, they're going to have to take a quarterback next year, probably not named Arch Manning, but it's going to have to be in the first round.
All right. I mean, we know they waited to the last absolute minute, or maybe Aaron Rodgers did, to finally get that deal done where he was going to be QB1 there in Pittsburgh. All right, let's go to yet another interesting QB room with the Giants. We got Russ, who we know is a rental, doing some high knees, Mr. Unlimited, but they did just draft a QB in Jackson Dart. And so the thought process there, Tyler, is that he's going to sit back and learn. You got Jameis there as well, but that's their guy of the future, right? Question mark?
In theory, sure. He is the guy of the future. I think that he actually could see the field sooner rather than later. I think that you look at the beginning of the schedule there for the New York Giants, and yes, of course, Russell Wilson seems to be the week 1 starter, but he could be given the hook pretty early considering how tough this schedule is to start. I mean, look at that. 2 road games, Commanders, Cowboys, you go against the Chiefs, the Chargers. All of those are playoff teams or divisional opponents. It's just a tough sledding there, and you get some relief with the Saints in week 5, but after that, again, it just continues to be a slog for the New York Giants. So I could see maybe halfway through the year, Russell Wilson gets the bench and Jackson Dart comes in, and maybe that's all you need to see if he is your guy of the future. If he works out, great, but there's also a world where this thing kind of craters, and you see Brian Daboll get fired, you see Shane get fired at the GM spot, they kind of blow this thing up, and then this new regime that comes in, well, they're not beholden to Jackson Dart. Yeah, sure, the franchise drafted him in the first round, but if they're staring at someone with the first overall pick like Nussmeier that they love, well, then we've seen this before. We've seen Josh Rosen in Arizona, and all of a sudden it was Kyler Murray with the first overall pick the next year. So there's a world where the bottom kind of goes out from under the New York Giants. They kind of clean house, and a new quarterback comes in at the top spot.
Yeah, and that's the big concern, Jacqueline, because the ownership made it clear after last season that they were running out of patience, and that's a warning sign to Joe Shane and Brian Daboll for sure. Clearly, they made the case, the front office and the coaching staff did, that we're going to take Jackson Dart with the understanding that he's not going to play in year 1, which means maybe it'll be a little rough sledding early on, but we will develop him and he'll turn into a franchise quarterback. But owners, even though the Giants have been incredibly patient, doesn't mean they're going to stick around and watch what could be a terrible season based on the schedule we just saw. And if that happens, a new GM comes in, a new head coach comes in with a whole new coaching staff, they are not going to be beholden to Jackson Dart as Sully laid out. So it could be a situation where he's going to be a backup, and it just doesn't work. Now, if he comes in the middle of the season and lights it up, we'll have a different conversation. But we saw lightning in the bottle first year with Brian Daboll and Daniel Jones, and after that, it's been tough sledding for that offense. We never quite saw the Josh Allen, Brian Daboll marriage that worked so well in Buffalo.
Yeah, if you're Brian Daboll and you know your back's against the wall there, and then you look at that really roller coaster of a schedule, I can imagine that's really not a fun position to be in. All right, finally, want to talk about the Rams, because there were some questions about Matt Stafford and his future with the organization this offseason. They rework things, his extension and everything. He is injured, but we are expected to see him there week 1. But Ryan, this is a team that took the Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles right to the brink in the snow in the postseason that we saw last season. So do you think this is really a tank situation, or could they maybe go out and get a bridge quarterback or something and go to free agency to kind of bridge the cap for Matt Stafford if he does retire here shortly?
Well, here's the great news, Sully and Jacqueline. They have 2 first-round picks. They got one from the Atlanta Falcons, and maybe the Atlanta Falcons can tank on their behalf, and then they'll have a high first-round pick anyway. Won't have to worry about it. But Matthew Stafford has yet to practice because of a bad back, and he's in his late 30s. He's not quite 40 yet. He was drafted in 2008, I believe, so he's getting up there in age, and typically what you say about back injuries, they don't get better. It's not like a knee that you can have surgery on and be ready to go in 6 to 12 months. So they have 2 first-round picks. They could even play good football and use those 2 first-round picks to trade up for someone like a Garrett Nussmeier, who feels like he would fit in perfectly into what Sean McVay likes to do in terms of playing on time, throwing in anticipation. Kay Klubnik could be another name to watch out of Clemson if he has a big year. Drew Aller has a big arm. He's got to put it all together. So there will be choices for the Rams to make, and they have the added benefit of having those 2 first-round picks. So maybe the Falcons and the Rams both have bad seasons, and then you're picking 2 and 3, and you can decide what you want to do from there.
Tyler, Ryan, we appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me get on my soapbox about why I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to retire necessarily after the 2025 season. Getting us ready. We are so excited for the upcoming football season. And we are counting down the days when the NFL on CBS returns. That is September 7th. The Bills and the Chiefs are each team facing off on our broadcast at least like 9 times each. We have a lot of those AFC teams. You can watch your local game live on CBS or streaming on Paramount Plus.